Hi, I'm Laura Rainwater. I'm one of the pastors at Parker United Methodist Church. We are toward the end of December, and very often our church will have a longest night service, also known as a Blue Christmas service. But we're not going to do an official service this year. Instead, we'll do a time for prayer. And some people have asked, well, why do you do a longest night service or a Blue Christmas service, or in our case, a prayer opportunity for prayer? It's the Christmas season, right? Except we know that life is hard. And sometimes holidays can be stressful, overwhelming, or we just don't feel it. And we need to know that it's okay if we're not feeling the Christmas spirit. I know that things are tough for some of you right now, maybe for many of you. Right now, our beloved family pup is at the vet getting a spot removed from her head. The pathology will be back in a couple of weeks. We're trying not to worry about it, but while I was at the vet, they had a sign out that said, please be respectful because somebody was saying goodbye to their beloved pet. Some of you know what that's like. Decembers have been difficult for me for the last 12 years because 12 years ago, my mom was in the hospital trying to get a second opinion on a pneumonia, a very rare pneumonia that she had had for over a year. And so on Christmas night, 12 years ago, I spoke to her for the last time while we were driving to my in-laws. As we kind of got into that rural area where the cell signal is breaking up, I told her I had to go, but I would try calling her later. And then later never came. And in early January, she passed away. Some of you know what it's like to lose a loved one during this season. Decembers can be difficult. Holidays can be difficult. I know right now is a difficult time for some of you. Some of you have lost a loved one or have lost a pet. Some of you have your own difficult Christmas memories that never let you go. Some are dealing with difficult diagnoses, or you're awaiting a test result, or you have a broken relationship. You're recovering from illness or surgery, or maybe you're grieving, whether it's a recent death, a recent loss, or a loss from many years ago that still affects you. Maybe you're struggling in different ways. This is often a difficult and dark time. Sometimes life just feels heavy. And this longest night of the year, when the night is longer, there's more nighttime than there is daytime, is a good reminder that even in the dark, we can be together and support one another as we all look for relief, illumination, peace, and maybe even looking for hope. This Advent series, we've been using the Grinch to kind of help guide us as we work our way till Christmas Eve. And we've acknowledged in many of our messages that we might feel a little Grinchy. We might have some Grinchiness. And I feel like both Pastor Cody and I have repeatedly said that it's okay to feel the struggles. It's okay to feel the feels. It's okay to be blue. It's okay not to feel the Christmas spirit. It's okay instead to feel what we feel. To acknowledge that not all of us are feeling the same thing. Not all of us are feeling the light and the joy. And I wondered at various times if we're being too negative, if we're not focusing on the joy so much. Except the story of the Nativity, the story of Christ coming into the world, is not about God rewarding God's people because life was going well. Instead, Emmanuel, God with us, the Messiah, was not the proverbial cherry on top of a good life, but Jesus, the Messiah, came into our world not just as something else that God would do, but came into our world to show us that even in the darkness, there is love and hope and light. That the Messiah came to free God's people, to liberate us from the bondages that were wrapped around us, especially the bondage to sin and death. That the Messiah came that there might be light in a cold and dark world. Jesus was born in a stable, in a manger, perhaps in a place that wasn't very comfortable, to a young woman who was engaged. And Mary and Joseph created this new family that they didn't know what they were doing. Instead, Jesus came as the Christ to God's people in a difficult time under Roman occupation. And the people were looking for hope, for possibilities, for relief from suffering, just as many of us are. On Sunday during our prayer time, we will have an opportunity to pray individually. There will also be Stephen ministers. They are volunteer lay people of our church that have been trained to be good listeners. You'll also have me as a pastor, and you'll have others to pray with you if you would like. Or you can also just come and be quiet. We'll have some quiet music playing in the background. But we just want this to be a time to take a breath. Feel the feels. Perhaps go to some of the prayer stations to help focus us. To invite God to be with us as individuals, but especially as a community. Because the gift of the Nativity, the gift of the Messiah, the gift of Jesus the Christ is that God is with us. One of the things I remember vividly from my seminary studies is I took a prayer class from a Roman Catholic priest. And he was speaking, of course, to probably 99.9% of us were Protestants. Some may have been Catholic at some point in their life. But he said one of the reasons that Catholicism focuses, they have not crosses, but they have crucifixes where you can actually see Jesus' body on the cross. We often think of that as a Catholic thing. And he said from his theology as a Roman Catholic priest that he believes not only did Christ come into our world because we were suffering, but especially at the end on Good Friday, that God was suffering, that God suffers with us. Not only does God promise to be with us, but God knows what we're feeling. Jesus knew because he came as one of us. God knows because God lost a son. We don't, as Protestants, think about God feeling that way. But yet, isn't that what it means when God's Son comes into the world? And when God's Son died? Of course, we know the rest of the story, and we'll get to that in Lent and in Easter. But I think the mystery and the gift of the Nativity is a message for you, for me, for us, and for the world, that there is hope, that we are not alone, that even if we're not feeling so happy, holly jolly, even if we'd rather sing I'll Have a Blue Christmas because that's what we're feeling, that it's okay. It's okay. And if you are feeling the joy and the excitement and things are going well, guess what? That's okay too. Because our experiences are our experiences. And not every year are we going to feel the same thing. But yet it's the God who created us that wants us to be who we are, exactly as we are right now. What do you need to be yourself this season? Maybe you need to come to the prayer service. Maybe you need to be with others on Sunday. Or maybe you just need to be glad at all the good things that are happening. But know that we are not alone. That the Nativity invites us all to surround the manger, to be in awe of the Christ who has come and the Christ who loves us. I'm going to close like I did last time with a favorite song of mine. It's called You Will Be Found from Dear Evan Hansen. And trigger warning that this musical does include references to suicide, to depression, and hopelessness. And the finale to Act 1 is this song, You Will Be Found. And it's a reminder that we are not alone, that we have community, that others can see us and might reach out to help us, and that we might do the same with others. And I bet some of us have wondered if we are alone, if we will be found, if we will be seen. Now, I have to admit that I've not seen the musical. I've not seen the movie that was released in 2021. But the video I'm going to share a link to is from my favorite group, Voctiv. It was referenced in the last video that I did. They released a virtual choir video during the middle of COVID. You remember COVID in 2020 and 2021 when many of us were isolated, or at least we weren't as connected in community as we normally would be. And I remember watching this video, and you see individuals that were recording. They weren't recording as a group, but in their own spaces. And just remembering that this message really hit home, that we will be found, that we are not alone, even if circumstances make it feel like we are. And so it reminds us that as I watch this, as I watched it again this morning, that we are not alone, that God is with us, that we will be found, especially in community, whether it's coming to one of our Christmas Eve services, coming to one of our Sunday services, or watching online, or finding another way to be in community. Know that God has created us to be with one another, not to live our lives alone, not to be struggling on our own, but to reach out for help. If you need something, reach out to one of the pastors. Laura at parkerumc.org or Cody at parkerumc.org, or just we can find ways to help you receive connection. So I hope to see you this Sunday at church, this Sunday at the prayer service. It won't be live streamed. It's just going to be for about an hour in person. Or maybe you watch this video and you hear the song and you listen to those voices to remind us that we are part of God's world, that God is with us, and that whether we're singing I'll Have a Blue Christmas or Holly Jolly Christmas, that this is a season for us to know that we are loved, we are wanted, we are redeemed, and we are seen by the God of the universe. And so may the night and the light and the love of Christ, especially on Christmas Eve, may this Christ child fill you with the peace that you need. Amen.